birth of a prophet in the shadow of a tyrant. In the heart of ancient Egypt, where the mighty Nile flowed like a ribbon of life, a kingdom rose under the iron rule of a man who called himself a god, Pharaoh. His empire was vast, his word was law, and his arrogance knew no bounds. The Israelites lived under his tyranny, enslaved, beaten, and forced to build monuments that glorified his false divinity. But destiny was quietly unfolding. A whisper of prophecy spread through Pharaoh's palace. A child will be born among the Israelites, a boy who will bring your downfall. Fear gripped the king's heart. His pride turned into paranoia, and with ruthless command, he ordered the killing of every newborn male from the Israelite tribe. It was a time of terror. Mothers wept in silence, fathers hid in fear, and every cry of a newborn echoed with dread. Amid this storm of cruelty, a woman from the Israelites gave birth to a son, tiny, innocent, and pure. Her heart trembled with both love and fear. That child was Musa, Moses, the one chosen by Allah, guided by divine inspiration. His mother placed him in a small basket, sealed it with faith, and set it afloat on the calm waters of the Nile. As the basket drifted away, she whispered a prayer, a mother's plea that echoed to the heavens. The Nile carried baby Musa through destiny's current, straight to the heart of Pharaoh's palace, the very place where his death had been decreed. When Pharaoh's wife, Asia, saw the child, her heart melted. She felt something divine in his innocent face. Against Pharaoh's will, she pleaded, "He will be the comfort of my eyes. Do not kill him. Perhaps he may benefit us, or we may adopt him as our son." And so, by Allah's decree, Musa was raised in the house of the tyrant who sought to destroy him. He grew up surrounded by gold, power, and pride, yet deep inside, he belonged to another world. The same Nile that carried him to safety now carried a secret, that one day this child would rise against the greatest empire of his time. Destiny had just begun its journey. The child of slaves would soon confront the king who called himself God. But for now, Musa was still a boy, growing up in the shadow of Pharaoh's throne, unaware of the divine mission that awaited him. The prince who couldn't ignore injustice. Years passed, and the boy once found floating on the Nile grew into a strong, intelligent, and noble young man. Musa had been raised as a prince of Egypt, dressed in fine linen, taught the ways of royalty, and respected by all who served in Pharaoh's palace. Yet, deep within his soul, there was a restlessness, a quiet voice that reminded him he did not truly belong to this world of pride and luxury. Every day he watched the Israelites, his true people, suffering under the whips of Egyptian masters. He saw their tears, their broken backs, and their silent prayers. No matter how much gold surrounded him, Musa's heart ached with their pain. He could not pretend to be blind to injustice. One scorching afternoon, as he walked through the streets of Egypt, Musa saw two men fighting, one from Pharaoh's people and the other from the Israelites. The Israelite called for his help. Without thinking, Musa rushed forward and struck the Egyptian to defend the oppressed man. But the blow was stronger than he intended, and the Egyptian fell lifeless to the ground. Musa froze. The weight of what had just happened crushed his chest. He had not meant to kill, only to stop the cruelty. Fear took over as he looked around, realizing no one had witnessed the act. He whispered, "This is from the work of Shaitan. Indeed, he is a clear enemy who misleads." His heart trembled as he turned to Allah in repentance, seeking forgiveness for his mistake. The next day, the same Israelite who had called for help was involved in another fight. When Musa approached, the man cried out, and someone nearby recognized Musa as the one who had killed the Egyptian. Word spread quickly, reaching Pharaoh's court. Pharaoh, furious and threatened, ordered Musa's arrest and execution. But before the soldiers could seize him, a loyal believer from Pharaoh's own court secretly warned Musa, "Leave this city. They plan to kill you." Musa fled under the cover of night, leaving behind the only home he'd ever known. The prince became a fugitive, the palace replaced by endless desert sand. Alone and exhausted, he walked toward an unknown destiny, unaware that this journey was part of a divine plan written long before his birth. The journey through the desert of destiny. The golden walls of Egypt faded behind him as Musa walked deeper into the endless desert. The blazing sun beat down upon his back. The hot sand burned beneath his feet, and the wind carried nothing but silence. He had no food, no water, and no companion, only faith guiding his every step. Each grain of sand seemed to whisper the same truth. He was not lost, he was being led. Days passed, hunger clawed at his stomach. Exhaustion blurred his vision, but his heart remained steadfast. In the distance, he saw a cluster of palm trees, a sign of life, an oasis. Gathering the last of his strength, he reached it and collapsed beside a well. There, in the shade of the trees, he prayed softly, "My Lord, indeed I am in need of whatever good you might send down to me." As he sat in silence, destiny began to move around him. A group of shepherds had gathered by the well, drawing water for their flocks. Among them were two modest young women struggling to wait their turn, holding back their sheep while the men took all the water. Musa, even after days of suffering, could not ignore injustice, not even now. He approached the women and asked gently, "What is the matter with you?" They replied, "We cannot water our flock until the shepherds finish. Our father is an old man." Without hesitation, Musa took the heavy bucket, drew the water himself, and helped them feed their flock. Then he turned away quietly, sitting once more under the tree, his body weak but his soul strong. Later, one of the women returned, walking modestly, and said, "My father invites you so that he may reward you for watering for us." Musa followed her to the home of a righteous man, Prophet Shuaib. There, for the first time since leaving Egypt, Musa found kindness, safety, and peace. When Shuaib heard his story, he said, "Fear not, you have escaped from the wrongdoing people." Musa was offered a home and later married one of Shuaib's daughters, beginning a new chapter of life, not in a palace, but in the simplicity of faith and gratitude. Yet his purpose was far from over. The desert had not been his end, it was his preparation, a fire that spoke to the soul. Years passed in the quiet valleys of Madian. Musa lived a life of peace, tending flocks, raising a family, and serving his father-in-law, Prophet Shuaib. The scars of his past slowly healed, and for the first time, he tasted the calm of a simple, righteous life. But destiny, once again, began to stir. His mission, written by Allah long before his birth, was calling. One cold night, while traveling back toward Egypt with his family, Musa lost his way in the wilderness. Darkness surrounded them, and the cold pierced through their clothes. As he searched for direction, his eyes caught sight of something in the distance, a glowing fire upon Mount Sinai. He turned to his family and said, "Wait here." Indeed, I have seen a fire. Perhaps I can bring you some information from there, or a burning torch that you may warm yourselves." With steady steps, he climbed the mountain toward the light. But this was no ordinary fire. It was a divine encounter written in the heavens. As Musa drew near, the voice of the Almighty called out from the sacred valley, "O Musa, indeed, I am your Lord. Remove your sandals. You are in the sacred valley of Tuwa." The ground beneath him felt holy, and his heart trembled. He stood humbled as the voice continued, "And I have chosen you, so listen to what is revealed. Indeed, I am Allah. There is no deity except me. So worship me and establish prayer for my remembrance." The command was clear. Musa was chosen as a prophet, the messenger to confront Pharaoh and deliver the children of Israel from bondage. Then came a miracle to strengthen his heart. Allah asked, "What is that in your right hand, O Musa?" He replied, "It is my staff." Allah said, "Throw it down." When he did, it turned into a living serpent, moving swiftly before him. Musa turned in fear, but the voice reassured him, "Do not fear. Seize it, and it will return to its former state." This was the beginning of divine power, proof of his mission. That night, on the sacred mountain, a shepherd was transformed into a messenger. The man who once fled from Pharaoh would now return, not as a fugitive, but as the chosen prophet of Allah, the return to Pharaoh's throne. The desert winds carried a different voice now, one of purpose. Musa, once a fugitive running for his life, now walked as a prophet carrying the command of Allah. His staff, once a shepherd's tool, had become a sign of divine power. His mission was clear: return to Egypt and confront the tyrant who claimed to be God. As he approached the land of his past, memories flooded his mind. The palace where he was raised, the streets where he defended the oppressed, and the face of Pharaoh whose arrogance had no limits. It was not an easy journey. Fear whispered in his heart, and so he prayed, "My Lord, expand for me my chest, ease my task for me, and untie the knot from my tongue so they may understand my speech, and appoint for me a helper from my family, my brother Harun." Allah accepted his prayer and sent his brother Harun to stand beside him. Together, they walked into the heart of power, the palace that once called him Prince Musa. The same walls that once sheltered him now awaited his challenge. Before Pharaoh's golden throne, the brothers stood firm. Pharaoh looked down upon Musa with both recognition and disdain. "Did we not raise you among us as a child?" he thundered. "And you committed a crime by killing a man, yet you come back to preach to me." Musa's voice was calm, his words filled with truth. "Yes, I did it then when I was of those astray. But my Lord has granted me wisdom and made me one of his messengers. Let the children of Israel go free." Pharaoh laughed, a sound filled with arrogance. "Your Lord? Is there a Lord above me, Musa?" He sneered. Musa raised his staff and, by Allah's command, showed him the miracles, the staff that turned into a serpent, the hand that shone bright with divine light. Yet Pharaoh's heart grew harder. Instead of belief, he called his magicians to challenge the prophet. The stage was set: faith versus falsehood, humility versus pride. The man once known as Pharaoh's adopted son was now his greatest threat. The battle for truth was about to begin. A duel of miracles and magic. The call for a grand challenge spread across Egypt like wildfire. Pharaoh, proud and furious, announced a public contest. a duel between Musa, the man claiming divine support, and the greatest magicians of the empire. He wanted to prove to his people that Musa was nothing more than a skilled sorcerer, and that Pharaoh alone was their god. The day arrived. The sun rose over the golden sands, and thousands gathered in the grand square. Pharaoh sat high on his throne, draped in jewels and arrogance. The magicians stood ready, confident, fearless, their hands filled with ropes and staffs. Musa stood before them, calm and unshaken, with his brother Harun by his side. Pharaoh turned to Musa and mocked, "If you have come with a sign, then show it to us. Let us see your power." But the magicians spoke first. "O Musa," they said, "will you throw first, or shall we?" Musa replied with dignity, "You throw." They cast their ropes and staffs, and threw their illusion. It appeared as if serpents were slithering all across the ground. The crowd gasped. Pharaoh smiled, thinking victory was his. But Musa's heart was firm. Allah was with him. Then came the command, "Throw down your staff, O Musa." He obeyed, and before the eyes of all, his staff transformed into a living serpent by the will of Allah. It moved swiftly, swallowing every illusion the magicians had created. The ground that moments ago danced with trickery now stood silent in awe. The magicians froze, their pride shattered. They knew instantly this was not magic. This was truth from the Lord of all worlds. One by one, they fell to their knees and proclaimed, "We believe in the Lord of Musa and Harun." Pharaoh's face twisted with rage. His authority was slipping through his fingers. He shouted, "You have believed in him before I gave you permission. I will cut off your hands and feet and crucify you." But the magicians, once servants of falsehood, stood firm in faith. "Do whatever you wish," they said, "for we return to our Lord." That day, truth defeated illusion. The message of Allah had shaken the heart of Egypt, and Pharaoh's pride began to crack.
The wrath of Pharaoh and the plagues of Egypt. Humiliated before his people, Pharaoh's fury burned hotter than the desert sun. His pride could not bear that his magicians, once symbols of his power, had bowed to the god of Musa, عليه السلام. The entire court trembled at his rage. Pharaoh's voice thundered through the halls, "I am your Lord, the Most High. None shall challenge me in my kingdom." But Allah's message had already begun to spread. The children of Israel whispered with hope. They saw signs that their years of bondage might finally end. Musa, عليه السلام, continued to deliver. Allah's command, "O Pharaoh, release the children of Israel and believe in the one true God." Yet Pharaoh's arrogance grew. He refused, mocked, and challenged Musa, saying, "Bring us whatever sign you have, if you are truly among the truthful." Then came the signs, the plagues that struck Egypt one after another. The Nile, the pride of the nation, turned to blood. Its sweet waters became foul and undrinkable. Still, Pharaoh hardened his heart. Then came the frogs, swarming through homes, beds, and food. Next came lice and locusts, devouring crops and filling every corner of the kingdom. The land trembled with divine warning, but Pharaoh's arrogance stood unbroken. Each time disaster struck, he called Musa and pleaded, "Pray to your Lord to remove this punishment, and I will let your people go." But as soon as relief came, he broke his word. His pride chained him stronger than any iron could. Then came the final and most dreadful sign, a storm of darkness and destruction that shook the hearts of the Egyptians. They realized this was no sorcery. It was the wrath of the Almighty. Even Pharaoh's closest advisors whispered, "O Pharaoh, will you not see? Musa speaks the truth." But Pharaoh, blinded by power, declared, "If Musa's Lord is so powerful, let him stop me if he can." He had declared war against the Creator himself, and so Allah revealed to Musa, عليه السلام, the next step, to lead his people out of Egypt under the cover of night. The time of patience was over. The time of deliverance had come. The river that once carried baby, Musa would soon carry the weight of destiny once again.
The great exodus begins. Night fell over Egypt, heavy and silent. In the dark, the Israelites gathered quietly, hearts pounding, eyes glancing toward the palace they were about to leave behind forever. After generations of slavery, the command had come. set out with my servants by night. Indeed, you will be pursued." Musa stood before his people, the torchlight flickering against his determined face. "Trust in Allah," he said softly. "He will guide our way." The crowd moved swiftly, families clutching their few belongings, children clinging to their mothers, and the elderly leaning on staffs. Their footsteps echoed in the stillness of the desert, night as they began their journey toward freedom. Behind them, in the sleeping city, Pharaoh's spies soon brought word of their escape. When Pharaoh awoke to the news, his pride turned to rage once again. "How dare he defy me?" he roared. "We will bring them back, dead or alive." He summoned his massive army, chariots gleaming, horses neighing, soldiers armored for war. The chase began. Meanwhile, Musa and his people pressed on through the desert, guided by the stars and the promise of deliverance. But as dawn broke, they reached the shores of the Red Sea. The endless waters stretched before them, and behind them, the thunder of Pharaoh's army grew louder. Fear spread among the people. "We are trapped," they cried. "Pharaoh will destroy us." Musa raised his hand, calm and unwavering. His faith did not shake. He declared, "No, indeed, my Lord is with me. He will guide me." The people watched as the horizon filled with dust. Pharaoh's army was closing in. Horses pounded the earth, chariots rolled like thunder, and the air trembled with the sound of war. But then, at that very moment, revelation descended upon Musa's heart, a divine command that would change history forever. He struck his staff upon the sea, and the sea, by the power of Allah, split open before their eyes, rising into two towering walls of water with a dry path stretching through the middle. The wind carried the scent of freedom. Musa turned to his people and shouted, "Move forward. This is the path Allah has opened for us." The slaves walked into the sea, stepping into a miracle, the miracle of the Red Sea. The night sky shimmered above the Red Sea, but all eyes were fixed on the miracle before them. The waters had split, towering waves stood frozen like walls of glass, and between them stretched a path of dry land. The Israelites stared in awe and disbelief, their hearts trembling. This was no trick, no illusion. This was the power of Allah manifest before their very eyes. Musa raised his staff once more and called out, "Proceed, walk through in the name of your Lord." Step by step, the people began to cross. Mothers carried their children. The elderly leaned on their staffs, and the young helped one another. As they walked, they could see the great blue walls of water rising beside them, fish visible through the waves, suspended in motion, as if the sea itself was holding its breath in submission to the command of the Almighty. Behind them, the thundering roar of Pharaoh's army drew closer. Pharaoh, blinded by rage and arrogance, saw the sea split and yet refused to believe. He shouted to his men, "Look, the sea itself has opened for us. Advance, catch them." His army, thousands strong, surged into the path between the waters, chariots rolling, horses charging. The sound of metal and hoofbeats echoed like thunder. But as the last of the Israelites stepped safely onto the opposite shore, Allah's command descended once more. Musa turned and struck his staff again upon the ground. Instantly, the sea returned, crashing down with a force that shook the earth. The roaring waters swallowed Pharaoh's army whole. Chariots overturned, soldiers screamed, and the waves consumed everything in their path. Pharaoh, struggling against the flood, cried out in his final moment, "I believe that there is no God except the one in whom the children of Israel believe, and I am among those who submit." But it was too late. The mercy he had denied all his life would not come in the moment of death. The sea silenced his cry, and Egypt's greatest tyrant met his end beneath the waves. Across the shore, Musa and his people watched in awe and gratitude. The sea that once threatened them had become their salvation. The chapter of slavery was over. Freedom had dawned. The promise, the faith, and the legacy. The morning sun rose over the Red Sea, glimmering on the calm waters that had just swallowed the mightiest empire on earth. The Israelites stood silently on the shore, drenched in awe, relief, and tears. For the first time in generations, they were free. The chains of Pharaoh were gone, replaced by the mercy of Allah. Musa fell to his knees, raising his hands in gratitude. All praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. But freedom was only the beginning. The journey ahead would test their faith, patience, and obedience to their Lord. They wandered through the desert, guided by divine revelation. When thirst and hunger overtook them, Allah provided. Water flowed from the rock when Musa struck it with his staff, and manna and quails descended from the sky to feed them. Yet, despite witnessing countless miracles, many among the Israelites began to complain, doubt, and demand more. Musa reminded them, "Do you wish to exchange what is better for what is lesser? Be grateful to your Lord who saved you from Pharaoh's cruelty." But human hearts are easily distracted, and their faith faltered again and again. Then came the great moment of revelation. Musa ascended Mount Sinai to receive the tablets of guidance, the divine commandments for his people. For 40 nights he communed with Allah, wrapped in the light of his presence. But in his absence, some among his people fell into ignorance and made a golden calf, worshipping it as a false god. When Musa returned and saw what they had done, his heart broke. His face burned with sorrow and anger. He cried out, "Did you not promise to obey your Lord? Have you forgotten the miracles you have seen?" His people bowed their heads in shame. Still, Musa remained patient, guiding them, praying for their forgiveness, and leading them toward the land Allah had promised. His mission was not just to free them from Pharaoh, but to teach them submission to the one true God, and thus, from the palace of tyranny to the sea of deliverance, Musa's life became a timeless symbol of faith, courage, and divine justice. His story reminds humanity for all ages that no power, no throne, no empire can ever stand against the will of Allah.